And there's, I'd say, 2 parts to that. Oh, that's just blind luck. It's still going in the net. I dropped it in the edge while I was baiting up, and a little perch has taken it. Welcome to Fishing Discoveries. You're joining me today on the beautiful River Trent in Nottingham, right through the centre of Nottingham, a place called the Embankment. And I'm going to be fishing a light feeder, starting off with a maggot feeder and maggots on the hook. So I'm rigged and ready to go. Let's see how we get on. Going to start off with double maggots, and I've got a 1 metre hook length to start off, but I may alter the length of that as things go. As always, I've put my hook bait on before I fill my feeder. And this will last happen fairly quickly now. Full feeder. Get it cast out before all the maggots crawl out. So I'm fishing fairly close range to start. This is first cast of the day. Oh, ripping take while I'm just going for my sunglasses in my pocket. Just as we've been provided by that wonderful free entertainment with a gentleman on a bike blasting out music for everyone. I've just missed another take. It's so bright sunshine today. I need my sunnies on. Now I might have missed my chance there, and because I got a take straight away, what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the feeder on the bottom. I'm going to get a few turns of line off, and I'm going to put the line in the clip there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast back to that spot. If I can get the clips up, there we go. I'm going to cast back to the same spot and hopefully build a little bit of feed in that area. So I'm going to keep my cast short, maybe just a couple of minutes. That's if I don't get a bite and hook a fish. Both maggots are still good. So now I'm casting to a clip, and when I put a couple of turns on the reel and get it back in the rest, that should be in the same spot. Bite straight away. I'm absolutely on it this time. Got the hand on the rod, like a quick draw gunslinger ready. And a little tremor. Even the next tiniest tremor I'm going to hit, because I want to get extra feed in there, so I'd rather hit it, be out and back in with some extra feed than sit there waiting for a bite to develop over almost no loose feed. And on top of that, the 2 canoeists just gone over it. That may have spooked things, so I'm going to take this opportunity to recast and also check those maggots. Absolutely busted to nothing. If I had to make a guess, by the bites, by the way the maggots are done, I think they're probably dace. We'll see how many dace I get after calling it. Full feed it and straight back out. I think we've got our first fish of the day. I could barely tell if there was anything on. It's not the biggest fish in the world, but let's have a look. A tiny dace, so I called it right. There's more maggot than hook in his mouth. I don't know if if he's even hooked. There we go, nothing. Tiniest dace, but they all count. There's not a great deal of flow here, so I don't need to be kitted out with a really heavy feeder rod. I've got a 1.5 ounce tip, quiver tip on there, and it's either 30 or 40 gram swim feeder, I can't quite remember, but it's quite a light swim feeder. I'm fishing 8-pound line, but it's quite a durable but thin 8-pound. I'm fishing 8-pound for durability. The fact that there's no flow, I don't need to worry about it pushing the line and creating a big bow or knocking the feeder off its spot. There's always a bit of a gamble when you've got these tiny little trembling bites. You can hit them and it'll probably be a small fish. Or you can wait for it to develop and maybe a bigger fish will pick your bait up. But the gamble is the little fish could pop the maggots and leave them next to nothing on the hook. So as soon as you've seen those trembles, you kind of you've entered into a bit of a wager, basically, by ignoring that bite. It's another tiny dace. By ignoring that bite, the risk is that your maggots are completely useless and not fishing anymore. But if they are fishing, the payoff to the gamble is a bigger fish could come along and pick it up. So what I would say, once you've entered into that gamble, you should set a clock on things. Once you've had a bit of a tremble bite and you're ignoring it, I'd only give it a minute or two, because with the risk of no maggot on there, it could be wasted time. So as we can see, I'm putting in plenty of casts every couple of minutes, I'd say, as an average. So bite straight away, little tremble. That one actually moved the feeder. A little bit of a drop back there. With this long hook length, it's not like a method feeder on a still water, where when your fish picks up the bait, it's sort of, almost tight to the weight of the feeder straight away and hooks itself, or certainly pricks itself enough to make it panic and bolt with the hook in its mouth, and you get a real wraparound bite. Fishing this method, I've got a 1 metre hook length. The benefit of that on flowing water is you've got very natural kind of action of your bait. I think this might be a small fish if there's even anything on the end. Yeah, the long hook link, no, nothing. Basically allows the bait to travel downstream of the feeder, because things are trickling out of this feeder, coming downstream, and that's able to waft in the flow and have quite a natural appearance. Maggots are looking okay, so quit that jibber jabber, get the feeder back out. It's not very deep out there. This feeder's hitting the bottom in about 3 seconds, I'd say. Bite straight away again, little trembles. I'm into a fish. How big it is the question. It does not feel massive. It's tiny. Another tiny dace this time. Oops. In terms of bait I'm using today, I've got 3 pints of maggots, which I'm slowly decanting into a smaller bait tub, sifting off the dust so that they're nice and clean when you're using them. I've got about a pint of hemp, which I've mixed some in the ground bait, and I might loose feed some later on if I end up fishing a waggler. And on the far left, I've got a handful of casters. I've emptied the rest into my ground bait, and I might use a few of those on the hook if I want to see fit. They'll take some bigger fish maybe later on. In addition to that, I've got some ground bait mixed up. That's, if I remember right, that's dynamite silverfish ground bait for rivers, with a little bit of hemp, some frozen dead maggots, and some casters mixed in there. Flipping heck, that's a better fish. That's more like it. Still swingable to hand, but a better quality dace. Not the biggest fish I've ever caught, but certainly best one so far. Oh, I think I've hooked a fish. Feels a little bit better. Slightly better. Let's see if I can zoom in on this for you. It may not be massive, but that's a little dace. That's what we've been catching. It's about twice the size of the smaller ones. But yeah, I'm fairly happy to keep catching them. If I can get a good number of them, you know, be a nice satisfying net full of fish at the end of the session. Another tiny one. Right, straight away. Oh, that was a bit more serious. It feels a bit better. It's not massive. No, not big at all. We're here on the same day, and I'm switching to Waggler now. I think the fish are up in the water, and so I'm going to fish Waggler on the drop, hoping to get bites quite quickly. I plumbed up out where I was fishing and taken about 6 inches off the depth, so I'm going to be nowhere near snagging bottom. And I've got a 2 gram loaded Waggler on with some number 9s spaced about 6 inches apart, just to get the bait falling down through the water. And I've got a size 18 hook and a single maggot. I've been spraying bait out there already, but I'm just going to put a few more maggots out before I make my first cast. So I'm not far off the line I was feeder fishing. Bit of hemp going in there as well. So let's make the first cast and see how we get on. I don't quite believe that, but I think I'm going to bite first chuck. Maggot's not busted, so it could just be me. This float does dive a little bit when it's settling, but let's see. No, that's bite. Don't feel massive. more of those little days. But yeah, off to a start. Bust my maggot. So I'm single maggot on a size 18. And it's 0.11 millimetre line, so pretty fine. They're not big fish, and this is a lovely soft 13-foot match rod, so it shouldn't be smashing up links on the strike like a heavy feeder rod might. I can't quite believe how quick the bites are. It's very slow flowing on this section, so Waggler's a better choice than a stick. If there's a fair pace on, I'd probably opt for a stick float, where you can hold it back, slow it down against the flow. But when you've got those really slow flows, we've got an upstream breeze as well today, Waggler can be a great option. The upstream breeze keeps a bow in the line kind of around back towards you rather than bowing downstream in the flow. Slow flow and upstream breeze, it brings a bow this way. Oops, I'll catch a fish, then I'll show you what I mean. Oh, it comes off. So a slow flow and an upstream breeze brings a bow in the line coming back this way. So when you pick up the line, you've got a nice lift off to your strike. If you've got a very strong flow, you get your bow going the other way, which is not great for striking or control. So that's where you'd opt for a stick float, where you can actually lift the line off and mend it. So fast flow, rule of thumb for me, would be faster the flow, more likely I am to go for a stick float. And if I've got a downstream wind, I'd be more likely to go for a stick float. Upstream wind and slow flows screams Waggler for me, and that's exactly what we've got today. And all that jibber jabber, I forgot to put more feed in. That's something that you really need to keep on top of, keep that feed going in. Probably missing bites. I am missing bites. I shouldn't have to concentrate on talking to camera and explaining what I'm doing. Wow. So my maggots went in, and just as I was firing some hemp in, a fish took a maggot at the surface, so they really are up on the top. Immediately that's going to make me move one of my shot further back, so I've got 3 number 9s down the line now. I've moved the other one right up to the float. casting slightly further than I want and reeling back with the line, rod tip underwater, which sinks the line, so you're not as susceptible to that tow on the surface from the wind. There's still a little bit of effect from it, but it's not actually blowing and skimming along the surface. And I'm casting slightly downstream. You don't want to be straight out in front of you. I've actually cast that a bit short. You don't want to be straight out in front of you, because you do need a bit of a bow in the line. It's difficult to know which direction to strike if you're straight out in front. But as soon as you've got that bow from the rod tip around to the float, it gives you a nice arc to kind of follow with your strike. Nothing on that closer line there, but having said that, something's took me bait. Went straight away. Another small dace. Oh, you got lucky. The one that got away. Devastating. That could cost me all of half an ounce in weight. A few more maggots in. Because the fish seem to be up near the surface, I'm firing the maggots slightly downstream as well. It's very slow flowing here, so you don't have to feed up above to allow the maggots to sink and get down to where the fish are. You want your maggots to land right where you think they're feeding. So another small dace in the net. I can see fish at the surface when those maggots hit. I'm putting some hemp in as well, just to keep things interesting. And another reason to cast well over is you're not splashing your float down where they're feeding fish. And the result is you can get a fish straight away, even if it is tiny. And if you get lucky, they don't pop the maggot and you can get straight back out with the same maggot. There's quite a lot of chop on the water today, which makes it difficult to see a float. And a lot of people would probably be with a straight waggler. But when you're on small fish in slow flowing water, they don't always take that float on. There's quite a lot of resistance. So I've actually opted for an insert waggler, but as you may be able to see there, if I hold it against my top, it's got a two-tone insert, and that two-tone, it's almost like having two floats. If you're struggling to see, you might see one colour better than the other, but what I'm finding is I can see, I've shotted it just so at normal sort of conditions that I can't stop catching fish here. Oh, I bumped it. At normal sort of conditions, if I dropped it in the edge, it cocks and shows all the yellow and the orange. But as this chop on the surface is kind of moving across, it's hiding the yellow on the tops of the waves and revealing it on the bottom, so you can always see the orange at the top and the yellows coming in and out of view. So you're not got your float constantly appearing and disappearing, and you're not having a variation on like a continuous colour. Wow, straight in again. A continuous colour might be difficult to judge when the float's going down or not, because it's constantly varying its the amount of colour showing, but you've not really got an indication of what's the chop and what's not. With the way I'm set up here, I know if that yellow's appearing and disappearing, it's the chop, but the minute the red disappears, it's definitely a bite. And it seems to be working well for me so far, because I'm hitting a few more bites than I was on the feeder. Another useful tip, it doesn't pay to go too heavy with reel line when you're fishing a waggler on a rivet. Certainly wouldn't want to be heavier than £3 line, and you can even go down to 2 and 2.5. It's amazing how much stretch there is in that light line, and with a nice old school match rod there's plenty of give in the rod. Lovely soft forgiving action, and you're not, as you can see, you're not fighting fish out of snags. You've got a ton of open water, so with £2 reel line and about a similar breaking strain on the hook, I'd be confident landing £4 or £5 fish. You know, there are a few chub in this river, and if I hooked into a decent chub, wouldn't think twice about playing it hard on £2 line. You'd be surprised how much pull it takes to break £2 line with a match rod. You feel like you're going to snap the rod before you snap the line. I think that's the longest drift without a bite. And I've hit something much bigger. I don't know if it's a fish or not. It's coming back like a bream. Well, next best thing, a wet bag. Delicious. Not entirely sure what that is. Looks like it might be a sock. I'm not inclined to handle it either. Yep, so if you're in any doubt, bream fight like a wet sock. Kind of tells me that I'm on the bottom there at that point as well, so fishing it as long as that, it's sunk down enough to be on the bottom. So I'm guessing from where I plumbed up to where it ended up there, it probably slopes up slightly. Remembering to keep that bait going in. Getting a bite as I do that. Yeah. For anyone that's interested, this rod is a Browning Advance S, which is about 25 years old, and I've yet to find a river fishing rod, 13-foot match rod, that feels better than this for light work. I had a waggle at a few in shops, but there tends to be a lot of rods geared for commercial fishing these days. But this rod feels equally at home fishing a stick float or a waggler on a river, which is if you're buying rods 25 years ago, you'd know that was a difficult combination to find. And I can imagine there's maybe 5 or 10% of viewers saying, yeah, that was a great rod, and another 5 or 10% saying, God, that was a terrible rod, and the rest of you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about, never even heard of it. But I like it, and it shows you don't have to be having the latest gear. Good gear is good gear. There's some fantastic improvements in tackle, but sometimes they got it right back in the day. Every time I feed the maggots, I'm trying to keep an eye on where they land for a few seconds after and I am seeing boils almost every time, so they're right at the surface, these fish. I might even move the shot so that I'm not dropping through them. I'm wondering if my maggot might be falling too quickly, although here's another fish. It's not massive though. I'm labouring under the hope that if I keep feeding this line for long enough, maybe some bigger fish will move in and I'll pick up a bonus fish if I keep persevering. And if not, worst case scenario, I'm going to catch a net full of little fish, which is kind of fun. If you've never done this kind of fishing before, another thing worth noting is the way I'm striking. I'm not striking straight up like you see some people do. I'm striking flat to the water, and as I talked about that bow in the line, I'm kind of straightening out that bow from this back end, so I move my rod over that way, flat to the water. And it's the path that basically picks up the most line and pulls straight to the float, and therefore the hook the quickest. It has another added advantage, especially when you're fishing near the surface. The advantage of striking low is that you don't pull the fish up and have them skidding across the top, break the surface and spook the rest of the fish. It kind of keeps them low down. Because I've seen a few boils where I've fed my maggots, I'm going to slide another shot up out of the way. So I've only got 2 number 9s down the line now, and I'll put one just past half depth and one 6-inch from the hook. I'm using Stotts, which are a lovely, easy to apply shot that slide really well on line. So it means you can vary your shotting pattern almost infinitely and indefinitely without damaging your line. Ooh, that's pulling a bit. Feels slightly better. That might be all of £1/4 pound. Just yeah, ever so slightly better, not massive. Be a lot more fun if they were all that size, that's for sure. It's a testament for good bite detection that every fish you see coming in is hooked in the lip and not deep hooked. And there's, I'd say, 2 parts to that. Oh, that's just blind luck. It's still going in the net. I dropped it in the edge while I was baiting up, and a little perch is taking it. And maggot's still perfect. Yeah, so take detection, although I can take no credit for that one. There's 2 things. The fact that I reel in after the float's landed and pull everything tight, it means that the line is perfectly straight in front of the float. Instead of it all landing in a bunch, you pull it straight, so it's falling tight to the float. The other thing is I've got a tiny number 9 shot 6 inches from the hook, and we call that a telltale shot, and that really does help bite indication. If you trot for grayling in winter and you've ever come across the odd trout and you end up deep hooking trout, there's a very good chance that you've not got a good telltale shot set up. Once you put that telltale shot into the equation, you get take detections almost instantaneously, assuming you're not fishing massively over depth. I mean, if you're trotting and you don't know the depth, you're really doing it wrong. That was a quick take. I almost thought it was the float just settling. Well, we're just about at the end of the session now. The only thing left to do really is pack the gear away and take a look at what we've caught. So I've got a lovely net full of silvers here. About half of them on feeder, light feeder tactics, and about half on Waggler, quite slow flowing water for Waggler. So I'm going to get these back in edge of the water now, so they can get a breath. I'm going to count them back, which I don't normally do, but it'll be interesting to know how many we've had. 1, 2, 3, 49, 50. There's a lot here. 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 113, 114, 116 fish. Not big, but particularly on Waggler, it's great practice getting into that rhythm of catching fish after fish. So I've enjoyed myself today, even though no whoppers. Don't forget to click and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of thing, and join me next time on Fishing Discoveries. So we come for a return visit. It's just a few days later, but the weather's been nasty. It's been really windy. Would have blown camera off the tripod, it was that bad. But we've had some much bigger fish this time, so I thought I'd tack this on the end of the last video, using exactly the same tactics, both myself and Gary. And this is what we've had. Just weighed it, just shy of £9 for me, including a couple of really nice chunky perch. Let's have them both together. Look at that for a pair of perch. Oh, and they're going back. And lots and lots of these sort of medium-sized perch as well. Some lovely perch in this spot, and I've had 1 or 2 nice roach as well. I'm not even going to bother counting numbers up. It's nowhere near as many as last time. But I'd say that the quality of the fish is significantly higher. So yeah, I just thought I'd tack that on. We're going to have a quick look at Gary's and see how he's done as well. But it just shows you just a few days apart. We've come down maybe 600 yards. It's a little bit deeper water. But yeah, all in all, 2 nice sessions, almost back to back. Okay, so this is Gary's catch from day 2. Just talk us through highlights of what you've got there, Gary. You've got some nice bream bit looks of things.
Yeah, a couple of bream, nice bream.
Yeah.
See, well, since I've caught out like that.
Yeah.
And nice perch. First fish of the day was this perch on a whole worm.
Great stuff.
Give it a good fight.
We're going to get some weights at total bag after this as well. Let's just have a close up on your contents here now. There's some lovely fish in there, real good mixed bag of silvers. I can see
some skimmers somewhere as well.
Roach and dace, some little skimmers.
That's
marvellous.
Yeah.
Marvellous. Do you want to let's put them back. Yeah, bream are going to need straightening up. They're oh, that one's straightened himself. They're a bit rubbish at being let go, bream.
It's a nice fish, isn't it?
It is lovely, yeah. Well done, mate.
Yeah, he's fine.